Hi everyone, I'm Oliver from Blendtuts.com. In the last tutorial we saw how to track the camera motion from a real footage. In this video we are going to learn how to add 3D objects over that footage. Alright, once we have the camera, we need to render 3 different layers: the 3D shadows, the background, and the 3D elements. Then we mix the shadows with the background video, and then we put the object over it. It sounds really easy. It's slightly more complex, but this way you will understand it better. So let's go for it. Okay, so here I am in Blender, and this is the scene we ended up with in the previous tutorial. We have our tracked field and a monkey head in the middle of the scene. The only difference is that I took this monkey head and made some quick UVs to it, so I can add a texture right now, and it will look something more complex than just diffuse material. Alright, so first step, let's go to the cycles render. Oh, by the way, if you go to the movie clip editor, there is a scene here in the bottom that is set up tracking a scene. Well, this option will generate a scene that will automatically render with projected shadows over the background and everything. But I'm not really sure right now if it works with cycles. I think it works only with the Blender internal. But I don't care too much about that, because what I want in this tutorial is to show you how it's done, so you learn something of compositing and you can control it a little more manually and not make it just automatically, all right? So you have more control over it. Okay, so now we are in cycles render. Let's turn this on, rendered. Here we have our scene. Quite crappy, right? Okay, so first step, we need to see the background in the background. Okay, so let's go right here, and in film, we have to activate here the option transparent, and there we have our background. So now we don't see the sky render, we see a transparent background, so we can see the image we have in the back. In the background. Okay, I'm getting crazy. All right, so let's just add a quick material to this object. Let's create a new one. Let's name it Susan. Okay. And instead of this image, let's open one. And here I have assets, and I have this little texture. All right, there I have it. Okay, now the next step is that we need to add a light, because right now what we have is just the environment lighting that we have here, and the color, as you can see, is not completely black, so we have some illumination in the scene, because as you can see, if I turn it white, we have a lot of illumination, and if I turn it black, we have nothing. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it a little slightly there. Actually, let's pick a color, a bluish color, like the sky, something like this, and just use nodes and decrease the strength to something like 0.2. Okay, and now let's create a light. So let's go ahead, divide this, let's go to the top view, Shift A, lamp, sun. Okay, and now we have a sun lighting from the top. You can see the shadows projected just under the monkey head, but we want to fit the shadows that we have in these objects in the background, right? So the shadows should go this way, all right? Be projected a little to the right of the monkey head. So let's just switch to the front view. Well, this is actually the back. Control 1 to see the back. And let's rotate this. As you can see, when we rotate it, the illumination changes. So let's make something like this. Let's rotate it a little in the Z-axis. You can see it from the top, what I'm doing. So I think this is good enough. Okay, now we can go to the light options here. We have a sun, and here by increasing or decreasing the size, we can blur more or less the shadows. Okay, in 0, as you can see, they are completely rigid shadows. So let's just blur them a little bit, but not too much, because as you can see here, the shadows in the background are pretty rigid because the sun is hitting quite hard. So something like this should be enough. Okay, 0.04. Okay, that's the value. All right. Now, we have a problem here. We have this floor and we don't want this floor. We want our background video. So what we need to do is to just go to the node editor. And here we are in the material options. So we select this plane here. Let's go to the materials, create a new material. And to this new material, I'm gonna call it diffuse, like this. Okay, and it's just a white material and it has nothing else. This is the material that we are going to use to project the shadows onto, all right? But now let's press the F button, which is the fake user button. Here you can see the number of users this material has. Right now is 2 because we have one fake user because we activated the F here, and we have the floor. Okay, but now we are going to remove this material from the floor because this one is gonna be used later. But for a while between while we configure the rest of the scene, I'm gonna not to be using this material. So it can happen that Blender crashes or Blender closes or something, and if the material has no users, it will be deleted. All right. Which is not a big deal because in this case it's just a very simple material, but I'm gonna activate it anyway. Okay, and now let's press the X button and add a new material, right? Later we will come again to that. So this material will be floor, and this material will be a tricky one. So let's go here, press N to hide this panel, and here we have our diffuse and everything. First thing we need to do is I want this floor to project some red light to the monkey head, okay? Because when the light hits the floor, it reflects some of the color of the floor into the head, right? This is called indirect lighting or radiosity or how you want to call it. So let's pick a color similar to the one of the floor, which is probably something like this. So as you can see, if we get closer, you can see that the monkey head is receiving some red light, okay? Instead of this one, let's pick a brighter color so you can see it better, okay? Here you can see perfectly that it's receiving a lot of green light from the bottom. This will help a lot in the integration of this object into our scene. So press Ctrl C to go back to the red color. This is a pretty good color, all right? And now, even we could do it from here, but I prefer to do it from the node because it's more, in node editor is more visible and we can see better what we are doing. So what we need to do is to make this material transparent to the camera, but not to the rest of the scene because we wanted to reflect this red light to this monkey head. Of course, we could use a texture with the real floor so it can reflect better the little colors of the floor and everything. But in this case, I'm gonna keep it simple and just give it the general color that it has. So it's a diffuse one. Okay, so first we need to add a mix shader. Here we go. Drag it right here. As you can see, it got a little darker. This is because we are mixing this in a 0.5, which is the half of the material is this diffuse one here, and the other half is nothing because I have nothing yet. But this part will be actually a transparent BSDF, transparent shader, and let's plug it in right there. So now as you can see, it's half reddish color and it's half transparent. If I turn it to 1, it's completely transparent. If I turn it to 0, it is completely red. But the problem here is that, of course, if I put it on 1, it's transparent and we can see the background, but it's not projecting the red light in our model, all right? It's not receiving the indirect lighting because the lights doesn't bound at all. in the floor because it's completely transparent. So what I need to do is to add here a conditional node, which is here in the input light path. All right, and this is a conditional to say Blender when to use one of the two materials that are input in the mix shader. So if it's camera ray, here we have it. If it's a camera ray, it will act as the second shader, as this shader, okay, the one that is at the bottom. But if it's not a camera ray, in all of the rest of the cases, if it's a diffuse ray, if it's light bouncing or whatever, it's going to add as a normal diffuse BSDF. So as you can see now, we have our red light coming from the floor, but the rest is transparent. Okay, of course we have a little issue here, and is that we haven't shadows, all right, but we are going to add them in the compositing. So we need to do now the setup for the final render. So I think the scene is pretty okay. Maybe we can retouch a little the sun. Okay, let's try with a little more strength or something. Okay, this is better, I think. Let's probably change a little. As you can see here, if I put the strength of the environment lighting at 0, the world lighting, it's completely black, where the sun is not hitting the surface directly. So let's increase it a little. This is too much. This is pretty okay. I like it this way, maybe a little more. 0.16. Okay, I like it this way. All right, now let's disable this. Let's put it on solid color. Let's just save this. Okay, and now let's go, and we need to pick this object, press M, and with shift press, we need to click in the second layer. This will make this object to be active in the two first layers, while the monkey head is only in the first one, right? This will help us when setting up now the render layers to render in one side our object in the layer 1 with the transparent floor, and then in another render layer we are going to use to render only the second layer with the diffuse material we created before, with only the shadows but not the head, because the head is not in the second layer. All right, let's go here to the render panel and let's set this up. So first we need to go here to the layers. Here we have render layer. This render layer, we are gonna call it 3D element, okay, which is the monkey head. And for this layer, we are only going to render the first layer. This means that we are going to render what we see in the first layer, which is the plane and the monkey. But the plane, as it's transparent for the camera, will be invisible. We'll only have from the plane the diffuse light that it projects in the monkey head. Okay, and now we need to create another render layer. This will be called shadows. And here I want to only render this second layer because the second layer only has the plane in it, and it will have the diffuse material. But now we need to add diffuse material to this plane. And how to do it if we already added one material? We can't add two different materials to the same object. Well, actually we can, but they cannot be active in different layers with different materials and all that. So what we need to do is to override this layer, because in this layer we would only put all the objects that are receiving the shadows for our from our 3D elements. So we go here to the material and pick the diffuse one. There we go. So now what we achieve with this is that all the objects into this layer will be overridden with this material. All right, so here the plane, that is the only object in this layer, will be using the diffuse material. Okay, and also for this material we need a few channels that we don't have activated, which is the ambient occlusion and the shadow. So we can access them from the compositor to composite them over the background. Okay, I think this is everything here. So now I have two different render layers. Okay, I think it's everything is okay. So let's save it again and let's press F12 to see what happens. Here we have our render object. You can see that we have only this object, and after this finishes, which is 300 passes to have it right, we will have rendering exactly only the plane with only the shadows. As you can see, the monkey, even if it's not in this layer, is also reflecting some light over the floor, but we don't care about that right now because we, even if we see that in this combined shot, we are going to extract the shadows only, all right? So that diffuse reflections doesn't affect us at all. Okay, there we go. All right, done. So now we have these two layers. If we change to shadows, then we have the shadows. And instead of combined, we can go here and see only the shadow and only the ambient occlusion. Right, so now we are going to see how to combine them in the compositor. Let's go here. Let's activate the 3D element. Let's save this. And now before going ahead, I want to add here some motion blur. So activate here motion blur, and 0.5 is too much. So let's add 0.2, for example. And this is because right now, as you can see, it has some motion blur. And this means that here in the borders is a little blurred. And I want to do this because in the final part of the compositing, I'm going to show you the difference between two different nodes with that blurred borders. Okay, so right, I was going to cut this, but it's going to finish already. So we can continue with the compositing right now. So let's go already to the compositing. Here we can go right here in the nodes. Let's go to the compositing nodes, activate the use nodes option, and let's press dot to go to the middle. Okay, so here we have our render layers and composite, which is the output of the composition. All right, and here we have already our layer. Okay, let's press Shift Space, and let's with Shift A add an output viewer and connect this image. So right now, if we activate here the backdrop, we can see our composition in the background. Also, if we press B in the V in the keyboard, we can zoom in or zoom out, sorry, and with Alt B we can zoom in. Okay, and also if we press Alt and the middle mouse button, we can drag the backdrop, right? This cross indicates the middle of the image. So first step, we need to add the background. So let's add an image. Let's open an image and let's go here to here, image sequence, open the first frame and open image. Now, instead of single image here, I want it to be an image sequence. And I know that this image sequence is 156 frames. All right, and now we are in the frame 45. Let's click auto refresh. So it takes automatically the frame 45 for us. And now we need to add the shadows on top of this one. So let's pick these render layers, duplicate it with Shift D, and instead of 3D element, let's go ahead and pick the shadows. All right, so now to go to the viewer, actually this one, we are not going to use it until the end. We can cut this connection by just disconnecting from here, or we can just press Control and left click and drag, and that connection will be cut, so it's not in our way for work. And the viewer is gonna be at the end. We can connect everything with the viewer directly without going ahead and adding this connection. Okay, we just can press Control Shift and click, and it will be rotating around the outputs of that current node. So you can see here, this is the depth, shadows, and ambient occlusion. There you have them. So first, we need to add this layer, this shadow, on top of this image. Let's Shift and A to add a color mix. Let's drag it on top of that connection. There we have it. And actually, this one would need to be here. And here we have our background. All right, now we only see the shadows because the factor is 1, so it's only representing the output of this input. Okay, sorry, it's this one. If we put here something like 0.5, they will be mixed together. But now let's place it on 1. Okay, and instead of mix, we need to multiply because we want only the black shadows to be on top of the background. The white parts of the image, we want them to be completely transparent. Right, and we have a little problem here. As you can see, this black part is not exactly what we want. We want to see our trees there. So we need this part to be also transparent, or what is the same, to go right here and convert this part into a white color. But this is quite simple. Press Shift A, let's add a mix node, place it right here, and now we have everything black, so completed. Now, okay, we need to put this image, the shadows image, on top. And now we need to make it transparent using the alpha of the scene to convert this part in transparent, so this white color here, which is in the background, appears right there. What we need to do is to pick this alpha here and add it in the factor. So now, there we go. We have a little problem again. It's a lot of problems here. Now this is good. This is good. So we have this little line here because the plane is probably a little blurred, and in this border is still taking some of the black color from the background. So we need to erase that line. How to do it? Shift A. Let's go to Filter, Delete, Erode, and just drag this over this connection. So as you can see, the alpha now, instead of going directly to the mix node, it passes through the Delete, Erode. And if we press Ctrl Shift and click to add it to the viewer, we can see what this Delete, Erode node does. If we decrease it or increase it, as you can see, it grows or shrinks the alpha we have in that particular channel, which is the alpha right now. So let's put the distance into -1. There we go. And if we go again to the mix node, that black line disappeared because we cut that little pixel with this Delete Erode from the alpha. So now this image, sorry, let's go right here. So now this image is using the alpha of the plane a little eroded to show the white color in the background. So now if we put these shadows on top of this, here you can see our shadow on top of the floor. This is not exactly what we want yet, but just wait for it. Now we need to add the ambient occlusion on top of this, okay? So we need to see what we are going to do with the ambient occlusion. So just decreasing this value here, we can increase or decrease the amount of shadows on the floor, which is really nice because it's very easy to control the amount of shadows that we have on the floor, not going by rendering again all the scene. So let's put it for now on 0.5, right? Then we will increase them, but now we need to see what we are doing with the ambient occlusion. So let's pick this mix node, Shift D. Let's go here to ambient occlusion. Let's put it right here. And we need to do exactly the same we did with the shadows. So now we have the ambient occlusion plugin here. we need this alpha. We don't need to do this delayed road node again. We just can pick this output and plug it here. So now we already have that thing for the ambient occlusion. We don't need to repeat steps. Let's organize this a little so connections are clearly visible. There we go. This delayed road node, we don't need it again, so we can press H to collapse it so it doesn't take more space here. And this is a little trick. There is one node which is called the reroute node, and you can go with Shift A and in layout create this reroute node, but you can also press Shift and drag over a connection and it will automatically add a reroute. This only means that you can now redirect this connection to make it more visible or to make it more accessible, or even pick another output from here. So you don't need to go back to the real node and take this again. You can just, let's for example say that we want this output to affect the two nodes, so we can do that without going back right here. Okay, but you can also use it for this, or you can also have fun and just draw something with the reroute node. All right, someone did it lately. It appeared in Blender Nation. Okay, so next step is to just pick this multiply node, add it, which is not a multiply node, it's a mix node in multiply mode. Okay, quite confusing, but okay, so now we need to plug this image here, and we need to plug this image here. So now if we press here, we are adding our ambient occlusion, we have it, on top of our shadows. So we can control the shadows and we can control the ambient occlusion. Okay, so let's just tweak this a little. Let's put it like this for now. And now the last step. Well, not actually the last step, but almost. So we need to add our 3D object on top of that shadows and that plane and everything. So we need to duplicate again this mix node. I'm duplicating them, but you can just create it from scratch. Okay, it's not mandatory, but well, I prefer to duplicate it. It's faster. So let's plug this in the background, and this another layer right there. Sadly, we have it there, but we have this in multiply mode. We need to put this in mix mode and just press here so it picks the alpha, and here the factor should be 1. So here we have it, but this is the thing that I wanted to use the motion blur for. Here you can see that in the borders, instead of having it blurred, we have a little black stuff. This is because the object is mixing this, but it's picking some part of the background in black. So instead of a mix mode node, what we can do is to just Control X to delete this node, press Shift A, and instead of mix, we can pick alpha over, because it's actually what we want to do in this situation. So let's pick this, place it here, and let's pick again the 3D element and plug it there. And if we press Control Shift and click, now we can see the perfect combination. That's it. So let's press V so we can see it completely, and now we can play with everything in this image. So let's play first with the shadows. We can go right here and start changing some values. Okay, make the shadows a little darker, something like this, and the ambient occlusion, something like this would be nice. Okay, I like it this way. And now we can even go ahead and from color, RGB curves, and plug them right here. So we can change a little the color, make a little color correction to this element to make it fit better with the background, right? Because right now is the base material, which is not necessarily fitting the colors of the background. So we can just do a quick color correction, make it a little brighter, for example, right, to fit a little the amount of light that we have around. And just as we have a pretty reddish color in all the place, even if you, I don't know if you can see it, but if we zoom in, even these trees are a little reddish, even, okay, all the trees are a little red, so there's a lot of red in the scene. So I just added a little red to this layer also. So we could add a lot of red if this is a little embarrassing. Okay, let's go ahead. This is the point. Okay. And now, just to end, we can just go ahead again, Shift A, and add another RGB curves to the end. So we can maybe add a little contrast to the whole scene. Okay. Get a little red. And just tweak a little the colors. Okay, something like that. And we have our final scene. The only thing we need to do now is to go ahead, pick the composite node, and plug this to the composite. So now when we render, this is the image we will get. Let's take a look. This is the final render. I mean, this is the final node tree. So as you can see, we have the background, we have the shadows and ambient occlusion, and this is the 3D element. So here we have our shadows, our ambient occlusion. We could also mix the shadows and the ambient occlusion and then mix them over the background. But well, this is an option. I mean, the result should be the same, but you can do it the way it's more comfortable for you. For doing this, we needed to create this white background, use the delay error node to reduce a little the alpha, right? Maybe here, if we used an alpha over node, maybe it could work a little better, and we didn't have to use the delay error node. But I didn't just try it because I wanted to explain you this node so you can learn something else from this tutorial. And then we have in multiply mode the shadows over our floor, and we have then finally the 3D model over the shadows, over the background, over the anything. Okay, so this is done. Let's save it, and let's just press F12, and let's check if it works correctly. All right. Remember also the potential, the highly great potential of the render layers, because it's really powerful. You can separate things in different layers and render them while things in one layer affects the other layers. Here, for example, you could also render reflections, but not to have the head of the monkey in the same scene. So you can control also the amount of reflection. I mean, they are really powerful, and a lot of times we forget about them, and we shouldn't do it. Okay, so let's wait for it to end. Of course, we worked in one frame, but now we have this frame. The composite will also apply to every frame. So here you have it. It was pretty nice. We could also probably decrease a little the motion blur, but I don't care too much. Okay, this is just for showing you. You can decrease the motion blur. I just use it for just showing you the difference between the mix node and the alpha over. But well, it's already done. So finally, I think I made this tutorial in a quite record time for me, because lately I was increasing the time. I never stopped speaking, and I repeated things, and I was becoming crazy. So I need to control myself a little and make quicker tutorials going right to the point. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot of things from this tutorial, and I hope to see your works now integrating stuff with your real footage. So in the previous tutorial, you can see how to made the camera tracking to have a movement of the camera, and then in this tutorial you learn how to integrate them, right? With reflections and stuff like that is pretty more complex. But well, this will give you a base so you can start right away to do your stuff. Okay, so see you soon in the next tutorial, and happy blending!